Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
Inflation, a down economy, and higher taxes down the road are continuing to feed into feelings of uncertainty for everyone, especially baby boomers who are about to retire or already retired. And what's probably contributing even more to those feelings of uncertainty you have? Looking at your account statements. We'll talk you through it all today. Thanks for joining us on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. And Philip, before we get into our talk today about what's going on with the economy, what the heck is going on with our 401ks, we have a little history trivia before we get into all of that. It was this week in 1969, and I know you remember this, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the moon. It's estimated, Philip, over 500 million people around the world tuned in to that broadcast of the lunar landing.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Boy, that takes you back, right? You were one of those 500 million people watching that, right?
I was, Jen. I remember sitting down on the floor in front of my black and white TV with my mom, my dad, my brother, and we're sitting there watching in anticipation of that first moonwalk. And so that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe it's been a long, long time.
Yeah, and what an iconic! I can't think of anything else that's quite like it, where you're seeing someone leave this planet and go step onto the moon, and you're able to watch it in real time. I mean, just what a moment in history. I don't know that we have anything quite like that since then, where we've all been glued to it like that.
Yeah, probably not, but I will say this. I was at the beach last week or two, and so I was over in New Smyrna, close to Titusville, so we could see all the space shuttle, all the different launches, and there were two while we were there.
Really?
One during the day in the morning and one at night. And I mean, that was like 3 or 4 days apart, maybe 5 days apart.
Yeah.
And to think that they can launch those things that quick now.
Yeah.
And they do so much more, right? One of them, I think, was taking a payload up to the International Space Center, and the other one was putting more of those, Elon Musk Starlinks up into the sky.
Yes. It's becoming a whole other mode of transportation, maybe one of these days, right? It's certainly something to see how things have changed since 1969, and what a cool memory that you have with your family, remembering sitting down, watching all of that, and those words. Still something that we're playing here today. So very cool. Just wanted to take a quick flashback to 1969 as we were opening up the show today. We do have a lot to get to, and Philip, when it comes to all the fluctuations in the economy lately, we've seen some rough days, and I know it is tempting for me to get on and log on and look at my 401k and find out what's going on. How much attention should we be paying to those account balances on a day-to-day basis?
Well, on a day-to-day basis, if you're looking at your account, you're going to drive yourself nuts.
I am. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and that's not good for your mental health at all. But so how concerned should we be overall, right, with those fluctuations, even if you're just looking at it once a month? And I think here's the deal. It depends on where you are in life, right? So if you're that 25, 30-year-old, dude, don't worry about it. Just keep dumping money in, because if it's going down, you're buying stuff at a lower price. When it goes up, you'll benefit. Now, if you're, 3-5 years from retirement, that may be a different story, right? Because now you're more counting on that money being there to be able to facilitate your retirement and to create the income that you're going to need during retirement. And if you're already retired and you're living off of that income, that money, then that can even be more concerning as we look at those things. So it really does depend, Jen, on where you are in life cycle as to how much attention you really need to be paying to those things.
Right. And not only the account balances are we watching, and we get those quarterly statements, right, Philip? We can go in and we can log on online anytime and look at it, but then we get these quarterly statements. And if you'll remember, and I'm sure you do, the Secure Act that passed back in 2019 had some provisions that were trying to help people, I think, become a little bit more aware of what's going on with their retirement savings. So it required 401k administrators to include this future income projection with quarterly statements. So when your account balance is down, I'm guessing that's going to have an impact on what that little projection is. Are people concerned about that, or how would you talk to somebody about those projections and help alleviate some of their concerns and maybe fill in some of the blanks that they have with that?
So here's how I kind of look at that, and it's neat to have it up there, and it gives you some perspective, but just perspective, because let's realize what that really is telling us. It's projecting out. It's not even projecting out. It's taking the balance you have today, and it's looking at when you are 65 or 67, I think 67 years old, because that's full retirement age as far as Social Security is concerned. And it's saying, if that's your balance and you're 67, this is your anticipated income. Now, it only gives you perspective because that number is totally not going to be even in the realm of correct when we get to that spot in life. And so I look at it as, okay, it gives us an idea, but especially if you're 30 or 40 years old, it has no relevance, really and truly, other than you want that number to be bigger, so you need to be putting more money in. So I look at it as there's better ways to work on that and to make sure that people are putting enough away so they do have the retirement they always dreamed of.
And that does make me feel better when you look at that time horizon, when we should be concerned and when we should maybe recognize that we've got a little bit more time to make up for some of these losses. Let's just talk about also, once we get to retirement, we need to recognize there's something that we need to do with this balance that we've saved in our 401k. So talk a little bit about, Philip, your process for analyzing what we've saved and then coming up with a plan to turn that into income in retirement.
So I think that when we look at where we are when we get ready to retire, we've got that 401k balance. And hopefully that's not all you have. Hopefully you've got some other savings. So we like to look at the whole picture. What do we have everywhere? Maybe you've got an old 401k or an old IRA somewhere you kind of forgot about. We want to look at everything we have and determine how much income we're going to need, because that's the key, right? The key is not how much money we've saved. The key is how much income do we need to live the retirement we always dreamed of. And to do that, you've got to put together a budget. You got to be realistic. You got to know what those numbers look like so that you know what I call the shortfall, right? You're going to get Social Security. Maybe you have a pension. What's that gap I got to fill to make sure that I can enjoy retirement? And that's really the starting point for us. And then from there, it's allocating, right? How much needs to be in growth? How much needs to be in safety? How much needs to be producing income? Am I going to take income out of? And then how much do I have in emergency money? All those things matter, Jen. And that's why we developed our core retirement design to help people design that retirement. And so here's the deal. I'd like to offer folks an opportunity just to have a conversation, about 30 minutes of are you on the right track? Are you doing the right things? Is there some way we can help you? It's that simple. It's a phone call. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone design consultation, where we'll help you determine if you're on the right path. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is the president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And Philip, one more factor that I want to talk about here, certainly as we are preparing for retirement, no matter how weak or strong the economy is, we don't want to forget about things like taxes that can have an impact here as well. So not only do we have to think about what's going on with inflation and volatility, we have to protect our savings from taxes as well. How do we find ways to avoid potentially paying too much in taxes in retirement?
Well, I think we have to do the analysis, right? Some people I sit down with say, well, should I do a Roth conversion? I don't know. We need to look at what the tax implications are. What tax bracket are you in now? What do we believe you will be in when you actually get ready to retire? Those are the aspects we have to look at when it comes to taxation. But the key is we have to be cognizant that taxes are an issue when we get to retirement. And don't be blinded that, hey, I've got all this money, because folks, that money in your 401k is not all yours. Every time you take money out, Uncle Sam gets a share of it. And so he's part owner of that 401k. We don't want to be blindsided. We want to understand that, hey, there's tax consequences when I start pulling money out of that account. We need to put together a plan that's going to maximize our income and reduce the amount of taxes we're paying.
So a sharp rise in inflation, the increasing cost of healthcare, volatility, economic downturns, tax increases on the horizon. Philip, we need to recognize that these are just a few of the risks for your retirement income.
Yeah, just a few. Imagine how fast your life savings could shrink if you don't have a strategy in place to help protect against all those risks we just talked about. There are too many people who don't fully understand just how much of their hard-earned savings could end up going to taxes. So that's why today, folks, for listeners that are listening today, I want to help you out. I want to help you understand the potential impact taxes can have on your retirement savings. I want to make sure that you get an opportunity to learn about ways to reduce or possibly even eliminate taxes in retirement, and then help you create an income strategy to make sure that your retirement income lasts as long as you need it to last. Again, this is for folks listening to the show today. If you saved at least $250,000 for retirement, give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your phone consultation where we'll go over where you are, what taxes possibly could look like for you, and what things you're doing right, what things maybe you need a little help with. Those type of things. We want to make sure that you are paying the least amount of taxes possible when you get ready to retire. Again, there's no cost, no obligation. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone design consultation.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
This is your captain speaking. We're expecting fair skies, a smooth flight, and about a 85% chance or so of making it to our destination. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight.
Would you stay on that plane? Of course not. Well, do you have a retirement plan where you probably won't run out of money? You need a plan that no matter the destination will help you get to and through retirement successfully. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can design a plan to help you get to your destination as comfortably as possible, even if Wall Street or the economy causes some turbulence. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team to start working on your plan. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Get a plan designed to allow you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for. 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services, advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. StatlerFinancial.com is the website if you'd like to check him out online and learn a little bit more. And Philip, we're going to have a little fun here over the next couple segments talking about ways to create what we're going to call your 5-star retirement plan. And you think about that star rating system, right? We all know what a 5-star luxury resort might look like. Lush greenery, scenic views, top-notch customer service, and then picture a run-of-the-mill roadside motel. probably isn't going to have that 5-star rating because something's missing. And we want to help you make sure that you have all 5 stars for your retirement. And Philip, I'm sure we've all been there. If we haven't experienced it ourselves, we've heard horror stories of the difference between the 1-star roadside motel and the 5-star resort. I mean, we've experienced probably both, and we just know something's missing from that. From the, the 1 star.
Jen, it's really disappointing when you think you're staying at a 4 or 5-star resort and you get 3-star service.
Yeah, it is disappointing, and we all know. Like I said, we've all experienced this. So we're calling them stars. We're just kind of having fun with this. What we're really talking about would be the 5 key components of a comprehensive retirement plan. But again, we all understand the 5-star rating system, so that's why we're kind of taking this approach today. Tell me, what are the 5 main points for that if you want your retirement plan to have what we're calling that 5-star rating?
So I think that when we look at a 5-star rating for a retirement, we need to look at things like we need to have a reliable income plan because income is going to be important in retirement. We need to have a wealth management strategy, an actual strategy, not just a bunch of products or a bunch of accounts that we don't really understand what they're doing for us. We need a tax efficient strategy. We don't want to pay too much in taxes. And then we need a plan to address healthcare because that's going to be a continued growing concern for retirees. And then lastly, the 5th point is you need to have a proper estate planning strategy in place to make sure that you've got all of those type of things covered. Like you said, we call them stars, but they're really those 5 key components to make sure that you have in place a comprehensive retirement plan.
So let's talk a little bit about that first star that you talked about, that first point. The income plan. What's the first step for getting that in place? So we are starting with that first star of our 5-star plan.
So I think when we look at that, Jen, when we look at an income plan, people think of how much income can I take out? Well, that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, right? We need to know first, how much income do we need? Mm-hmm. Not how much will it produce, but how much do we need? And to do that, we have to figure out what that gap is, right? So we pretty much know in retirement, you're going to get your Social Security. Maybe you're lucky enough that you get a pension. And then we need to put together a budget so we know here's how much we need. So let's just say that, hey, we get $1,500 a month from Social Security. We're fortunate enough we're going to have a $1,000 pension. So we got $2,500 coming in every month. Now, we need $3,000. So we got a $5,000 gap. That's what we have to plan for. That's what we have to devise a plan to make sure we'll cover. So that's really the starting point right there is knowing how much you really need. And then from there, you kind of build the plan.
And let's talk about just some of the tools for how we generate income in retirement, because so often, Philip, during our working years, we're focused on saving, we're building up that savings. We have to do something with it in order to generate income from it. So let's just talk a little bit about that part. How do we actually generate that income? How do we actually take the income out of our savings?
You're right, Jen. I mean, so often, folks have worked so long putting money into their 401ks or their retirement accounts, and they're in growth mode. All they want to do is accumulate money. They want to grow it. The difference is that when we get ready to retire, probably 5 years out from retirement, we need to flip a switch and we need to think of things differently. We need to think of, okay, now I need to preserve what I have so that it will create the income I'm going to need. So what tools do we have? Well, we can use a dividend portfolio. We need a growth portfolio. We need a portfolio that's going to create some income that we can take income out of. We need some safety. And sometimes in safety, we want to use some annuities so that we know that we've got some protection there. And, annuities have their pluses and minuses, and you need to understand what those are before you start using things like that. Because there's four different types of annuities out there. So you need to understand what you have, what you're using, and what it can do for you. Folks, this is why I created the Core Retirement Design to help folks design the retirement they always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815, and let's get on the phone together and let's make sure that you are on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815. I'd love the opportunity to have a conversation about your retirement planning. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and we are walking through and talking through creating that 5-star retirement plan, just having some fun playing off of the 5-star rating system. What we're really talking about are the 5 main components of a comprehensive plan. And Philip, you talked a little bit about having both an income plan and a wealth management strategy. Explain what the difference is between those two things.
So an income plan, Jen, is actually a document, a plan that says, okay, here's what I have. Here's how I've got it allocated into these different buckets, different strategies. And here's where my money is going to come from as we walk through our retirement. So we know the first 7 years, here's where our money's coming from. The next 5 to 7 years and on down the line, we know which bucket of money our money's coming from to provide that income. So that's an income plan. The wealth management strategy is, how do we invest those dollars? How much do we have in an emergency fund? How much do we have in a conservative or moderately conservative portfolio that may provide us some cash flow? How much do we have in annuities? How much do we have in a growth bucket? That's the management style of those investments. And that determines what those funds are specifically designed to do for you. Growth, we want a growth bucket to help keep up with inflation and those type of things. So that's the difference. And so many people that I meet with, they have a lot of stuff. They have a lot of accounts and annuities and products. The problem is they don't have a plan or a strategy of how they're all going to work together. And that's a big issue when we hit retirement.
Talk a little bit about when it comes to how much growth we have. Once you get into retirement, how much should you have still invested in the market? How much growth should you still be shooting for at that point?
That's a loaded question, Jack.
That's why I asked.
So it depends, right? It depends on several factors. The first factor is what's somebody's age, right? I mean, we like to look at the rule of 100, not as a set fast, this is what it's got to be, but as a guideline. We want to look at that first to make sure that we're not way out of balance. And the rule of the 100 is you take 100 minus your age. If you're 65, then you want 35% of your portfolio in the markets at risk. And that's just a starting point. It may be that you have 45 or 50% in the market. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. The next thing we need to look at is, what is your risk tolerance? What does that look like? And so we walk through a whole process of determining what is your risk number and how does that equate, number one, to your current portfolio, and number two, the portfolio we're going to build for you. And so that's the second part. And if you take those two things combined, then that gets us a pretty good idea how much money we need to have in the market going forward.
And let's just talk a little bit about, given the world that we live in today, why it's so important for us to have at least part of our money to keep growing in retirement. What are some of the issues that a little bit of growth can help address?
Well, I know this is going to seem counterintuitive, especially since, our inflation rate this last week or two was announced to be 9.1%, I think. And so we need something that's going to help keep up with inflation. And that's what the market part does. It will help us keep up with inflation over time. It may be a year that it doesn't do that. It may be a couple years in there, it doesn't do that. But over a 10, 15-year period of time, that part that's in the growth bucket is going to do better than inflation is going to do over that time period. So that's why we want, even if you're 90 years old, we want a small little sliver in the market. Not big, but at least a small sliver, because that's what's going to provide us some growth to help offset what inflation does. So folks, listen, that's why we developed our core retirement design to help people put together the plan they need to make sure that the amount of risk they have in their current portfolio lines up with the amount of risk they can really and truly handle in their current portfolio. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement design phone consultation. It's that simple, folks. It's no heated pressure. It's just a 30-minute phone conversation to make sure that you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. I want to help coach you into that retirement. Give me a call at 863-285-3815, and let's determine if you're on the right path to the retirement you always dreamed of. It's that simple. Give us a call again, 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. That number one more time, 863-285-3815. Now, when you plan a vacation, you know how to research flights and hotels and how to look for savings, right? You want the most bang for your buck. So how do you do the same thing for your retirement? More on how to create that 5-star retirement plan coming up next.
If you have a retirement plan and would like a second opinion, call Statler Financial Services today. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
From the pitch, swung at a little too soon.
Strike three, you're out.
To the joke told at the wrong time. To barely missing your connecting flight.
This is the final boarding call for Flight 109 to Chicago.
Timing is everything. The same is true for your Social Security benefits. Take them too soon and you can leave a lot of money on the table. Take them too late and you might spend down too much of your savings. Everybody's situation can be different, but taking your Social Security benefits at the right time is important for your retirement success. Philip Statler at Statler Financial understands Social Security and can help you make decisions that are best for you and your retirement dreams. Call 863-285-3815 to start optimizing your benefits. With Social Security, timing is everything, so don't delay. Call Philip Statler at Statler Financial today, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Our firm offers insurance services and is not affiliated with the U.S. government. Advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services. As we get back into it, if you hear something you'd like to get some answers on, 863-285-3815 is the number to call. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Now, when you plan a vacation, you all probably know how to research flights and hotels and where to look for some savings, and you want the most bang for your buck. And we know how to do that with certain things, Philip, but we want to talk about that now. How do we make sure we are getting the most bang for our buck with our retirement savings, and we are taking steps to preserve our savings? And one of those areas where we can do that is by being what we call tax efficient. So let's talk a little bit about how we can do that. I think a good place to start is tell us the difference between tax planning and tax preparation.
So here's the deal. Tax preparation is pretty easy, right? It's history, right? So whatever happened last year gets put on a tax return because you get all these documents that says, here's your income, and that gets put on tax return and we file it. That's preparing your taxes. Not much planning at all in that process, because to plan, you have to start before the end of the year, because otherwise it's history, right? And you've gone past the opportunity to do any kind of planning. So tax planning is when you sit down halfway through the year and you start looking at what's happened so far and what you anticipate happening in the rest of the year, and then probably sitting down again in like November, December, first part of December. Okay, where are we at? How close are we? What things can we do now to reduce our taxes for the year? Do we need to get some charitable contributions? Do we need to up our contributions to our retirement plan? What can we do to reduce them? That's planning. Preparation is the act of putting all that information on the return and getting it filed with Internal Revenue Service.
So, and that's why I wanted to talk about this is understanding the difference between these two, because when it comes to tax planning, the goal here is to be tax efficient so your clients can spend more of their retirement dollars the way they want to, rather than having to overpay, in taxes in retirement. So talk a little bit about that approach and that goal in mind for your clients.
So I think one thing you have to remember is that we are in a very low tax environment today. We know that no matter what happens, that in 2026, the tax rates are going to go up. They're going to go up to what they were prior to the Trump tax reductions. And so we already know that the 10% rate's not going to change, but the 12% is going to go back to 15. And then we're going to go from the 20 to the 22 to 25. So we already know that we're going to see an increase in our tax rates. The question becomes, what can we do today to be prepared for that and put ourselves in the best possible situation we can to reduce taxes as much as possible? And so that's an area that we want to look at. We want to be cognizant of that issue. So many people head into retirement, they don't even think about taxes. As a matter of fact, a lot of people think they're retired, that they become tax exempt. And that just doesn't happen. As long as you have income coming in, you've got to pay some taxes. And but we want to be as tax efficient as possible and make sure that we're doing what we can to plan for those taxes. And just part of the issue is just having a plan, right? That's always been kind of the deal. And again, that's part of our whole process that we go through. And our core retirement design to help you design the retirement you always dreamed of is looking at those things. Does it make sense to do Roth conversions today? I don't know until we run the numbers and you and I look at them and say, maybe it doesn't make sense, but maybe it does make sense. But if you don't do the exercise, you don't know the answer. That's, again, why we do the core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 and let's you and I have a conversation about what does the core retirement design look like for you? Are you on the right path, the right track? Are you going to get to where you want to be in the next 5 or 10 years and ready for retirement? Again, give us a call, 863-285-3815. I'd love to spend 30 minutes with you. Make sure you're doing the right things to get to where you want to be.
That number again, 863-285-3815 to reach Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services. We've got a couple more stars in our 5-star retirement plan to get to. And again, we're calling them stars. We're having fun playing off of the 5-star rating system. What we really mean are the key components to having a comprehensive plan that would include an income strategy, an investment strategy, a strategy to be tax efficient, which we just talked about. The next one involves healthcare. And Philip, this is a big star that we don't want to overlook here. According to Fidelity, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2022 can expect to pay an estimated $315,000 after taxes for healthcare and retirement. That does not include long-term care. That is out of pocket. That is out-of-pocket costs. Are retirees even aware of how steep that estimate is? And how do you help somebody prepare for that?
And that's a pretty big jump from what it was last year when they did the same report. Because Fidelity's good about that. They run this report pretty much every year, updating those numbers of what it's going to be for a couple 65, what it's going to take for them to provide health care coverage and cost over their remaining years. And so what's that really based on? Well, it's based on 65 years old starting with. It's based on some life expectancy. And I'm not sure what they're using for life expectancy, but I got to think it's got to be 20, 25 years. And so you look at that number, it's a big number. It catches your attention, which is what it's designed to do. But you break that down over 20, 25 years, it's still a big number, Jen.
Yeah, for sure.
I did the math. And I thought, maybe it's not too big, but you take that 315 over 25 years, I think you're still at like $12,000 a year, a little over $12,000 a year.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's a big number, and we don't think about that. And so we need to remember when we're putting together that income plan that, hey, we're going to have this healthcare cost. And we know healthcare seems to be going up at a faster pace, maybe not today, but in general, it's going up at a faster pace than just regular inflation. And so we need to realize that and make allowances for that within our income planning process.
And let's talk about one last piece here before we run out of time here before our next break, Philip. How does estate planning, estate legacy planning, acknowledging your inheritance goals, let's talk about how that fits into what we're calling our 5-star retirement plan.
Well, I think that it is important that folks have an estate plan in place. And of course, how complex it is going to depend upon what your net worth is and how many folks we're leaving money to. You know, it gets a little bit more complicated when we have a second marriage, right? With kids on both sides, it can become a little bit more complicated. But the fact is, you need to sit down with an attorney and develop your plan to make sure that what you want to have happen happens when you pass away. So often I sit down with folks after somebody's passed away and things didn't go to where they thought they were supposed to go. Because somebody didn't get back into the attorney to make a change. So it's important that we have those things in place. I can't tell you how important it is to have power of attorneys in place so that somebody can take care of you when you can't take care of yourself. To me, it becomes one of the most important documents you can have because you're still alive, right? You need somebody to take care of you. And so that's important. The other stuff is too, but tell people that you've passed away, what happens, right? You're not going to be in pain because of it. So, but that's why I think those estate planning documents are so important and making sure that you're doing what you want to do. You're leaving what you want to leave to the people you want to leave it to.
Do a quick recap here before our next break. The 5 key components of that 5-star retirement plan that we've been talking about today include the reliable income plan, wealth management strategy, tax efficient strategy, a plan to address health care, and also your estate planning strategy. Let's talk about how you help build a retirement plan that incorporates all of those parts, and how do we get started on that with you today?
So I think that those things are all part of our process to develop the plan. Our core retirement design starts by analyzing where you are today, looking at where you need to be down the road, and putting together that income plan to get you there. The wealth management strategy, we talk about that when we put together the income plan. Here's what it looks like. Here's why we're using the different buckets we're using. And then in that, again, everything's based on that income plan, except for maybe the estate planning part of it. Everything else is kind of built into that whole process of designing that income plan. And so that's all incorporated into that whole planning process. Hey folks, listen, to get started, it's simple. It's a 30-minute phone consultation. Nothing crazy out of your day. We can get on the phone, spend 30 minutes just to see if you're on the right path to get to where you want to be. Walk through some key components to make sure that you're on the path for the retirement you always dreamed of. It's that simple. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 to schedule your core retirement phone consultation. Again, that number is 863-285-3815. Hey, don't let time be a hindrance. Give us a call. Short time period. We can make sure you're doing the right things to have the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call again, 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
This is your captain speaking. We're expecting fair skies, a smooth flight, and about a 85% chance or so of making it to our destination. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of the flight.
Would you stay on that plane? Of course not. Well, do you have a retirement plan where you probably won't run out of money? You need a plan that no matter the destination will help you get to and through retirement successfully. Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services can design a plan to help you get to your destination as comfortably as possible, even if Wall Street or the economy causes some turbulence. Call Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Services team to start working on your plan. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Get a plan designed to allow you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the retirement you've worked so hard for. 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services, advisory services offered through Statler Financial Services. Services Incorporated, a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. And right now we are in our Statler Financial Time Machine. And Philip, I'm going to have some fun here with this, because what we like to do in our Time Machine segments, we take a look at a year in recent history. We talk about what was going on in that year. I'm going to have you guess what year we're traveling back to for our Time Machine segment this week.
Jen, I heard that snicker. I heard that snicker in your voice. Yeah, I heard that snicker in your voice.
I know. I'm going to have a little fun with you here, but I won't make it too terrible. So here's your first clue, Philip, if you're ready.
Okay.
This was one of the top grossing movies of the year that we are going back to.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
So Spartacus, I guess.
Okay. Yes, it sounds like it.
It
Definitely.
sounds like it.
So I just have to
Spartacus
pick the
is there.
decade, right?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to try to guess, or do you want me to give you another clue before you
give me another
okay.
clue here.
All right, here's another one. This one I think will be pretty familiar to you.
It's now or never. Come hold me tight.
All right, a little Elvis for you. So this was the year Elvis came home from the army, and he recorded It's Now or Never. How's that for a clue?
Okay.
Not a very helpful clue yet.
Well, it changes the decade that I was looking at. So yeah, it's definitely it changes the decade.
Okay,
for sure.
I'm going to give you one more. One more. So this year was the year that we met one of our favorite families in history. The Flintstones debuted in this year. What do you think now?
Well, I don't remember ever not having the Flintstones on TV, so
I know.
That makes it a little difficult, see?
They've been around forever. Yeah.
So I'm going to guess, because
Okay.
this will truly be a guess. I'm pretty sure we're talking about the 1960s.
Uh-huh.
It has to be in the 60s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And with Elvis, since I remember where I was when he died, I can kind of backtrack a little bit. I'm going to say 1967.
That is very close. It is actually just straight up the year 1960.
Really?
Yeah.
That far back, huh?
Yeah, Elvis recorded It's Now or Never in 1960. Flintstones debuted in September of 1960. The top grossing movies were Spartacus, Swiss Family Robinson, and Psycho, which is too scary for us to play here on the air. So 1960 is the year that we want to talk about here. And let me tell you, Philip, what some things cost back in 1960. Gas was 31 cents a gallon. A postage stamp was 4 cents. And the average cost of a home was $16,500. Can we just talk about that for a second? How on earth did you have a whole house for $16,000?
Dadgum, you can't even buy a decent used car today for $16,500.
Right. I'm guessing, Philip, do you ever have that conversation with people and ask them if their if their last vehicle costs more than their first home, if their most recent vehicle? I mean, there's a lesson there in inflation, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely a lesson in inflation.
Here's one of the other things one of my favorites, a bottle of Coca-Cola was 5 cents. Can we even, we can't even imagine that. A nickel for a bottle of cola.
Man. Now it'd be interesting to see what the average person make back then, too.
Right.
That's probably not on your list, is it?
No, I don't have those numbers in front of me. But again, you're right. That whole different world. So we make more today. Things cost more today. The inflation rate in 1960, Philip, was about 1.14%. So pretty low with inflation, but even when it was low, let's talk a little bit about how the price of things double over time, because it's really tempting to say, okay, the house of a home in 1960 was about $16,000. You double that. And then a lot of times your temptation, Philip, is to just take that original amount and continue doubling that. But you have to double the bigger amount. That's what we have to think about when we're talking about planning for what things will cost in the future, right? You have to double it each time every 20 years. That's what we talk about with inflation.
Yeah, that's right. You do. And so it escalates faster and faster because the number gets bigger and bigger, right?
Right.
So
right.
It is one of those things that, I mean, I think back to today, right? And this is 2022, and I think back to the turn of the century, right? In 2000. What
I can't believe we used that phrase, turn of the century, for the year 2000. I know.
I don't know that I've used it very often,
You're
but
right.
It made sense right there, right? Hey, the turn of the century, when we were scared that the computers weren't going to turn on, right?
Yeah. Y2K.
And so, yeah, it's like, okay, what did stuff cost back then? And it's because that was 20 years ago, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a huge step, and we forget what inflation does to us because, if we prior to 2021, right, what had our inflation been? I mean, it had been nothing hardly
Pretty low.
The last 10 years, right? So we get lulled into this expectation of things staying the same, a little up here, a little up there, but nothing huge. Well, 2021 was a big eye opener, right? So we had some huge inflation numbers that are continuing into 2022. And it just shows us that much more that how prepared we need to be and how much credence we need to give to inflation because, we don't know how long this is going to go on. And if it lowers itself down, when's the next time we're going to see this big spike again?
Right.
I mean, those are some concerns that are legitimate concerns for folks that are retired or fixing to be retired.
So I would say if you don't have a handle on that, if that whole idea of factoring in inflation into your future financial plans, if that's not something that you know how to do or that you've even thought about, 863-285-3815, that's the number to call to reach Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services. That's 863-285-3815. A couple other figures that I want to bring to your attention in the world of retirement planning back in 1960. Now, I don't know that retirement planning as a concept was a thing in 1960. And here's one of the reasons why. Life expectancy back then was only 73 years for women and 66 years old for men. So, Philip, that whole idea of leaving your job in your 60s and then living for decades, that wasn't really something people were prepared for. That wasn't reality back then, right?
You're so right, Jen, that, that's so foreign to us, right? Because Social Security kicked in at 65. So the average man only lived 1.5 years on Social Security.
And that was it.
That's a big deal, right? That was it. And so now even the average man is going to live to probably 80, 85. That's a huge difference.
Yeah.
But it also means that we need to plan, right? And I know that another thing that we talk about a lot here at Statler Financial is taxes. And I want you to think back to the 1960s, right? In the 1960s, we had a really scaled up marginal tax rate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could have to pay tax if you made enough money. Now, granted, what it was back then was, I think if you made over $200,000 or so in 1960, I'm not sure what that equates to today, but I got to think it's a couple million.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Those guys had to pay tax. They hit a tax rate, a marginal tax rate of 91%.
Gosh.
Can you imagine?
No.
Where you were working to keep 10 cents of a dollar, 9 cents of a dollar.
Holy moly. No.
Yeah. And so could we, and I bring that up for this reason, Jen, could we go back to that type of tax rate down the road? And I think you got to say it's possible.
Wow.
Given the amount of money that our government has pushed into the system and the amount of debt we're holding.
Yep.
And the deficits we're running, maybe we don't get to 91%, but even, in the early 80s before Reagan made changes, the top tax rate was, it wasn't unusual for a top exec to be paying 75% tax rate.
Yeah. Wow.
Those are some big numbers.
Really big numbers. Yeah.
And so I think we need to understand that right now we have all three of those things that you just talked about are going against us, right? Inflation's a heck of a lot higher than what it was.
Mm-hmm.
We're all living extremely
a lot longer
than we were in the 60s. And the top tax rate isn't there right now, but it could go back there. It might have to go back there in order to pay back the debt that we've accumulated.
Right.
So that even makes it more important that we have some kind of plan in place.
Mm-hmm.
And that while we're in these lower tax brackets, we need to look at what can we do to be more tax efficient in the next 10 to 15 years.
Yeah. This is a fun overview of what was going on in the world in 1960. And Philip, anybody born that year is now obviously over 60 years old, so they need to be thinking about retirement planning. So what is your top advice, Philip, for those folks who like you, don't know a world without the Flintstones? They were born in or around 1960.
Jen, I would say that if you are, again, if you're 5 years out from retirement, it is so important that you start planning now and even start taking some steps to make sure that you're monitoring the risk you have in your current portfolio and making sure that you're taking some risk off the table. Because here's the one thing that me personally saw in the two major bear markets that we've seen in this since the turn of the century. And that is, it took about 4 to 6 years for somebody to get back to even from where they started, if they had a well-rounded portfolio. Now, if you're all tech, well, you may never come back. But the average person that had a well-rounded portfolio, if they weathered the drop in the market, it took them 4 to 6 years to get back to even. So think about that. If you are 5 years out from retirement and we are heading into a bear market now, what is that going to do to your 401k, to your IRAs? What's it going to do to your retirement accounts? And how can you position yourself to be ready to retire in 5 to 7 years? That's the question. Give us a call, 863-285-3815, and let me spend 30 minutes helping you get the answers. Again, that's 863-285-3815. Folks, if you are especially if you're 5 years out from retirement or less, or you have been retired for 10 years or less, it is vitally important that you have a conversation with somebody that understands distribution planning. Give us a call and let's schedule a 30-minute phone consultation. 863-285-3815. Don't miss this chance for your free 30-minute phone call. 863-285-3815.
You've been listening to the Statler Financial Radio Show. That number one more time, 863-285-3815. That's all the time we have for this week. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you then.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No strategy is guaranteed to be successful.
This radio show is a paid placement.